What's up, Las Vegas? You are now tuned into the first ever edition of the Las Vegas Crypto Podcast in collaboration with the UNLV Office of Economic Development. We are sitting in this multi-million-dollar facility known as BlackfireInnovation, which sits inside the Harry Reid Technology and Research Park. I know that's a lot to handle, but we are very excited to be in this partnership and to help accelerate crypto adoption out here in Las Vegas, educate those that are in the city about this fast growing industry, and to collaborate with like-minded individuals. You are now tuned in with myself, Jake Gallen, and ChrisDevitte. How's it going?
How's it going, Jake? Happy to be here. Excited for everything that we have going on.
Yeah, we've been working pretty hard behind the scenes over the last few months to put this together. Crypto is just going mainstream. How wild is it that we've been in it for a few years, and it seemed like this was always bound to happen, but now that it's actually happening, it just seems like a magical moment.
I don't think that there's a more exciting industry that you could possibly be working around. The caliber of people that are involved in this industry, the breadth and the scope of crypto and digital currencies as a whole is just absolutely astonishing. So we have some super exciting stuff coming up, and couldn't be more excited about it.
And we're right here in the entertainment capital of the world, which I also advocate on my podcast is becoming the experience capital of the world. And what better way than to amplify the experiences than to integrate the future currency of the world?
That's exactly right. Las Vegas, I mean, it's a city that's innovated from the very beginning. We're a tiny city in the middle of a desert, but look at what we've built. We have billion-dollar buildings that house 40+ million tourists every single year. This city is built for the future. We're ready for it.
We are literally going to be the city of the future. I do want to start off with a little bit of a background for the listeners to learn a little bit more about us, and we could talk about how we got into crypto. For those who are very new to crypto is a open source technology. Anybody can actively contribute to the network. It is unlike the traditional models where traditionally you go to a university, you take 4 years of classes, and then you get an accreditation. In the crypto industry, there are no accreditation platforms. Everyone just actively engages in learning through various mediums like Twitter, podcast, YouTube. And so there's nothing on the news or TV networks, and the educational outlets are continuing to grow, but the only way to do that is to trust some of your local leaders and learn through them. So we're going to start off with our backgrounds of how we got into crypto to kind of shed some light into all of the precarious ways that people who find themselves in the crypto industry landed themselves today. So Chris, just give us a quick background of who you are, your own background, and how you got into crypto.
Yeah, absolutely. Crypto is a very, it's obviously very new. It's an exciting industry basically because nobody's an expert, right? Everybody's learning as they go. And to get into crypto in the first place, you definitely have to be intellectually curious. The only way to learn about the industry is really to go hands-on and discover for yourself. I got into crypto at the tail end of 2016, going into 2017. I'd been an investor for quite some time. I studied hospitality here at the School of Hospitality Management in Las Vegas, UNLV. Had a great time there. From that point on, I went to go work for Wynn Resorts, the #1 hospitality company in the world. Spent 10 years there. Throughout my tenure there, just really took care of a lot of high net worth individuals, a lot of different investors, a lot of people from really diverse backgrounds. At that time, I was investing pretty heavily as well. Right out of college, I was really getting into emerging markets, specifically Brazil and India. In that process, you kind of have to learn the whole backstory of all these countries that really experience just horrific, economic hardship through currency failures and everything else. And in that time, I had a really big customer of mine that was, completely convicted in Bitcoin. And every time he would come into town, he would just invite me out, just give me the whole spiel. And it just kind of seemed like a scam. I'd heard of Bitcoin a few times previous. Didn't really, there wasn't much information on it. So it took me a while to get into it. Finally, he came into one time. into town one time, he said, let's go ahead and get dinner. So I met up with him for dinner. I was like, go ahead and explain, what Bitcoin is, tell me everything that you're working on. And honestly, he just did an awful job. But he looked me in the face, straight into the eyes, like I've never been looked at before. And he was like, this is going to change the world. And it doesn't matter what I say, and it doesn't matter what you say, but it's going to happen regardless. And I've never had that feeling where somebody was so sure about something that most people had no idea about. So from that moment on, I basically just went home and just did the deepest dive that I could into Bitcoin specifically. At that point in time, there wasn't much content, there wasn't much educational resources available. So it really took a lot of it took a lot of digging to get pretty involved. In the process of doing so, I came across some figures that I was really respected: Naval Ravikant, Balaji Srinivasan, Chamath Palihapitiya. They were all like extremely early Bitcoin investors, and these are people, some of the the greatest minds of our generation, some of the best thought leaders. And I just continued pushing, and so I fell down that rabbit hole just about 5 years ago, and I don't think that I've come out since. So couldn't be more excited.
The rabbit hole is such a common crypto lingo. It's the same exact thing happened to me. A little background for me: I'm born and raised out here in Las Vegas. Chris is as well. And I went to UNLV, studied kinesiology, did not use that professionally in any manner. I also worked on the Strip for 10 years, my most recent 6 years before leaving. I was a busser at one of the mega nightclubs out here. And from that position, around 2016, I learned about crypto for the first time. It was actually Ethereum, and I came across it in a Reddit forum, that's so crypto, just to learn about it randomly on the internet. And I was really fascinated with what smart contracts were and the ability to basically eliminate the middleman through some of these different positionings and to optimize that and to basically remove human error out of it, because that's the issue that we face with humanity is when you're interpreting law or when you're filing for paperwork or corporate office, there's so much human error and political positioning that happens in the back end that a typical software contract can really just change that and optimize those efficiencies. So I was really engaged by that, but I never put together that you could buy the underlying asset. Like I said, I had zero financial literacy going into this. And so it wasn't until about 7 months later in April 2017, a family friend introduced me to an altcoin project that he was working on. And I'm not going to name the altcoin project because most of them basically trend to zero. But as I was looking into this altcoin project, I came across Bitcoin. But then there was something else that stood out to me, which was a name, Satoshi Nakamoto. And I was so fascinated that around the idea of pseudonymity, which is basically an anonymous account where you create your own identity and people follow from that. And Satoshi is the pseudonymous creator of Bitcoin. We don't know if it's one person, three people, he, she, they, but Satoshi basically changed the world. And from there on, I went down the rabbit hole for weeks and weeks, just trying to figure out every little thing about crypto and how crypto is decentralized and what decentralization is, what permissionless means, what borderless means, the political ramifications of having a digital currency that cannot be manipulated or printed at will, and what a finite and scarce asset means, and all of these different financial terminologies that I'd never realized. And so from there on, I just started buying crypto, and obviously everyone gets involved in altcoins, and then you just keep going deeper and deeper, and you realize that this technology is really going to change the world. And I'd literally never been so convicted in my entire life, and I pretty much put my entire net worth and livelihood into it since 2017.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most exciting things about crypto is that so many, so much intellectual capital, so many people from such diverse backgrounds that are really high quality thinkers, really high quality people in general. You see them come into crypto and nobody ever leaves, right? It just engulfs their entire life because the total addressable market for basically a new monetary system is the entire population of the world, right? When you're looking at disruptive technologies, it's for example, Uber. When Uber was coming into fruition, how big can Uber get is really a question that you would ask as an investor. And well, the answer would be it can probably get as big as the taxi cab companies, right? Well, back then, nobody really understood that some people would just give up their car completely and just Uber wherever they are, or that they would be using food delivery services to drop food off to your house. And so these disruptive technologies are market expanding. They make the market so much larger. So when you're talking about crypto assets, Bitcoin specifically here, how big is the market for Bitcoin? Yeah, it's definitely global, but how much of the monetary premium does that get? How much of investment from other areas does that get, whether it's real estate, gold, stocks, bonds? I mean, the total addressable market for this industry is absolutely colossal. So I think that's why everyone's so excited about it.
Yeah, when you have disruptors into a new market, they don't just equate to what their competitor is, right? This is what Amazon did to Walmart. This is what Netflix did to Blockbuster. They passed it in magnitudes order. And just talking Bitcoin specifically, again, the running narrative right now is gold 2.0. That's what the millennial and Gen Z seem to identify with. Gold's market cap is 10 trillion. Bitcoin right now is roughly 1 trillion, give or take, based on depending on the day and the volatility. So you still have 10x to go just to equate to gold. But if this really is the disruptive technology and life-changing currency system that we all believe in, it's going to pass magnitudes there. The timeline, I think, varies depending on whatever the backdrop is with the political ramifications and like the Fed with printing money and how 30% of all dollars that ever existed were printed in the last year.
Right. And the backdrop for cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin specifically here, again, really just took the main stage in the year 2020, right? When you have these governments that were printing money out of control, whether it was needed or not, that's up for interpretation. But the realization that these governments are just going to keep on printing money globally, and historically, it's very common to see countless examples of currency collapses and absolute economic devastation throughout the history of the world, and you kind of lift up the veil and see what's going on at how a lot of these governments have taken advantage of their currency systems for so long. I think that alone justifies the existence of a non-state issued monetary system. And I think that 2020 really put Bitcoin on the map. And I definitely don't think it's looking back from there.
And speaking of currency devastation and hyperinflation, we recently just saw the first country adopt Bitcoin as its official legal tender. And that is massive. Yes, El Salvador has its issues, but a lot of these issues can be fixed with adopting a currency that is not manipulated by governments at will. And it's extremely exciting to see how this is going to transform that country and see if this is the right model to see if Bitcoin can push us to the future.
It's very exciting. I think a lot of Bitcoin kind of has a definition problem. A lot of people, it can be definitely quite intimidating, but I mean, it's actually not that complicated. I think at its core, it's a new monetary system without a single point of failure that's distributed globally. There's not a single individual or entity that can dilute, manipulate, or change the system. So it's a completely freestanding new system that is outside of the purview of the state. It'll exist alongside all other major currencies, but we live in a capitalistic society, and within that society, choices are always better, right? Every single currency system has risks associated with it. Bitcoin also has risks associated with it, but there are different risks that exist within the legacy financial system that we see today. So the combination of those two going forward into the future provides such a more sound economic background for the entire world. And I think that that's the value proposition here. We're building out a completely new financial system, not to necessarily compete with any specific currency or government currency system, but just to exist alongside it so that more people have choices, right? And it's incredible to see the growth. We're sitting here, 2021. Bitcoin was, from inception in late 2008, till today, where you have 150 plus million users globally, from a grassroots movement that started at zero. The value of Bitcoins for the first year past inception was zero. And people just mined and maintained the network free of charge just because they thought it was interesting. And it's not the first example of digital currencies. It's the first successful example of a digital currency. And the reason why it was able to be so successful is because it's a distributed network. It exists on the computers of tens of thousands of people around the globe. And so to shut it down, you would have to shut off the internet completely. And we've never come across anything like this before.
It has never existed anything of this nature. I'm glad that you talked about the history a little bit, because the cypherpunk movement is kind of what drove the entire narrative of crypto. It came around in the 80s, and you had some legends come and introduce different ideas like e-gold and BitGold, and Wei Dai was leading the movement and introducing smart contracts. But Satoshi came in and they solved the double spend issue, which was a big issue that prevented a lot of these digital currencies to exist, people would go in and you could manipulate the code and issue two transactions with one currency. And that's the beautiful part of Bitcoin. And it has not been hacked since its inception. It has not gone down in any sort of significance, and it's been operating to a T, to the Lindy effect.
Absolutely. And I mean, the system that, and just to see it grow over the course of 12 years, and the reflexivity of the network and the staying power that it's had, obviously there's a lot of competition to be the currency of the world, or to exist, to compete alongside some of these currencies like the US dollar, the euro, Chinese yuan, that have existed for so long, that are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, or big governments and militaries globally. And then there's Bitcoin, that is just software that's run on computers distributed across the globe, that can't be censored, seized, or any other way manipulated. Well, why is that important? That's so important today because the United States, although we are a superpower, the United States is only 4 or 5% of the global population. And when we're talking about a currency going into the future, we need to, we need to discuss the world as a whole. And so many people are living under authoritarian regimes where they don't have access to outside capital. They have no trust in their banking systems. They're not able to keep savings anywhere in a safe place. But now they have a monetary system that they can hook up to the global financial system with nothing more than an internet connection. And that allows them to create savings, which will then lead to capital production, investment, and that's how you really build a quality life for people globally. And so this movement continues to gain a lot of traction, and I could not be more excited about what's being done here.
And not just traction, the speed that the industry moves at is incredible. It's the fastest growing industry of all time. Bitcoin was the fastest asset to $1 trillion, 13 years since its inception. But the industry moves with urgency, and that's what I really abide by, because we know that our backs are kind of against the wall, and that it's been attacked in so many different directions. You see there's like a FUD dice, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that people throw out the same narratives about China banning Bitcoin, or the green mining movement, and superpowers coming in and trying to undermine it so that their power isn't taken away. So the industry has so much passion, because crypto is the first industry where all the users are also investors, right? Those who use Facebook don't own Facebook stock, at least maybe some do. The same goes for Google and pretty much anything else. When you're renting out an Airbnb, you don't have Airbnb stock. It's not required. But in order to transact in Bitcoin, you have to have the asset. So the users also have skin in the game and passion. And I think that's one of the reasons why nobody leaves, as we spoke about before.
Yeah, and you touched on how it's battle tested, right? Like, look at, this thing was born on the depths of the internet in 2009 is when it was launched. completely public, completely transparent for anyone that was willing to hear. And anyone can join the Bitcoin network. There's no requirement. There's no minimum deposit threshold. It's completely freestanding, and anybody's more than welcome to join. And why the industry is able to move so fast is because everybody's so purpose-driven. Once you see a glimpse of a future that you want to be a part of, it's just, natural emotion to just really want to, tackle that and put all your energy into it. And we're seeing this across the globe. This is one of the first truly global movements that's ever been done before. Sure, Facebook exists in other countries, and it's, you can speak to your relatives overseas and whatnot. But really, you're not using Facebook to interact with people globally. Well, everyone on the Bitcoin network is definitely using the Bitcoin network to interact globally, and that's never been done before. So we're moving at a breakneck speed. We're doing things that have never been done before, and we're definitely learning as everyone goes. But the history of Bitcoin speaks for itself. The fact that it was able to go from a valueless coin and network, within 2 decades is absolutely astonishing to where it is today at, roughly around $1 trillion, really alongside these companies, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, all the big FANG stocks that are, roughly around the $1 trillion market cap. It's incredible because so many people know, everything about those companies, but there's so much disinformation within the Bitcoin ecosystem and how the world views Bitcoin because of its, rocky past, that it's never had anyone to speak for it. There's no individual that, really owns the network or speaks for the network. There's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of disinformation. So, if you're not very familiar with it, the waters look pretty murky. But once you begin to look under the veil, it's the most interesting story that I've ever seen in my life. And that's why so many people come into the industry and they're so engulfed with, the ethos and all of the potential that it can deliver to humanity that nobody ever leaves.
Yeah, it really is a faith-based system as much as the narrative and almost religion-like, because that is the future that you want to be a part of. And crypto is bringing in some of the brightest minds in the world. For a long time, those who graduate from prestigious colleges would often send their resume out to Wall Street or down to Silicon Valley. But now we're seeing a trend where those people are just immediately integrating into the crypto society, whether they want to be an investor or a builder. And now you don't even have to go through the university model. You can just actively contribute to whatever project you may seem fit, whether it's Ethereum with smart contracts, Bitcoin as being the best store of value, or any other new idea that's introduced to the network. And so you see, as some of the brightest minds move and migrate into the crypto industry, that's why it moves at such a fast pace. And that's why you see this massive volatility, because it goes through these hype cycles and spurts, because everyone is just so infatuated with the potential of how it's going to change the world.
Absolutely. And I really touch on being purpose-driven quite a bit. As millennials, we witnessed the dot-com crash. We witnessed 2008. We recently witnessed the COVID crash. That's a lot of economic instability. And that's just in the United States alone. If you really zoom out and look at the global economy as a whole, there's a ton of difficulties, to say the least, globally. And so when you experience so many hardships in such a small period of time, you really kind of start to question, is the system really working as it was designed to, or can we potentially maybe make one that can work in conjunction and maybe be even better than it? And so there's so many purpose-driven people that really see the vision that crypto can bring, and Bitcoin specifically here, to humanity as a whole, and they're working day and night. Everybody is working day and night to realize that vision. It's very, very exciting.
It's a 24/7 network, operates 365, has not gone down. That's why it's so different from the stock market, where the traditional equities close on the weekends and it's 9 to 5 markets. But it brings in such a diverse background. It's global, it's international, all different backgrounds and interests are looking into the industry. And because of this reason, it touches almost every market and industry in the world, between hospitality, art and collectibles, the legal realm. Everyone is introducing their own idea with their own diverse background. And that's why you see 6,000-7,000 altcoin projects whether you want to label it a scam or an innovative idea. But now crypto is beginning to integrate into the physical world. Specifically out here in Vegas, we saw that Resorts World just partnered up with Gemini, which is one of the most popular crypto exchanges in America, backed by the Winklevoss twins. What they're going to do with it, we're uncertain, but this is why we're starting a podcast like this out here in Vegas, because the community is growing, but nobody knows really how to corral all the troops together. So we hope that we can speak with whoever is operating that at Resort World to come on the show and kind of find out the ideas of how crypto is going to affect the hospitality and gaming industry, specifically in Vegas.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to start out, really breaking down the basics, making sure that, everyone has an understanding of, the movement that's going on here. And then we're going to be bringing on industry professionals, entrepreneurs, really relevant people to the crypto industry as a whole, but specifically Vegas and the hospitality industry, and to see how we can innovate and really bring this, really disruptive technology here to the 24/7 Las Vegas economy that we live in today.
And we're seeing small networks and small communities have dramatic impacts on their community. We mentioned that El Salvador just adopted Bitcoin's legal tender. That started off with Bitcoin Beach. It was just a group of surfers who began accepting Bitcoin, and they aligned their ideologies with a transparent network. And now it's been adopted by the country as legal tender. And so just simply you and I sitting here talking and collaborating with UNLV and Blackfire and some other contributors that'll come along the way, we can really have a huge impact on the city as long as we all work together, because crypto is a positive sum game.
Absolutely. It really speaks to the whole decentralized nature of the entire industry. You have so many different pockets of really intelligent, really high quality people working on a ton of really difficult problems. And they're all each working within their ecosystem to just build out the overall ecosystem as a whole. So it's incredibly powerful to be distributed across the globe. This is the first industry that is truly global, and you have small niches of people working, around the clock in every single corner of the earth. There's never been anything like that before.
Yeah, I want to focus on Vegas and crypto because that's what the show's about.
Absolutely.
I wrote down a few different sectors of the Vegas economy that it can affect, specifically gaming, hospitality, payments, tipping, alternative gaming. Like this can have such dramatic ramifications on the impact of the way that Vegas operates. We just have to create transparency and collaborate and educate to really accelerate crypto adoption. But I know Vegas has had an issue recently with millennials and gambling and gaming, because our generation is very experience-based. So we don't want to go out and gamble away at a slot machine or the table games. We want to go out to the nightclubs. We want to remember what we're doing. But if all of the millennials are engaging in cryptocurrency, why not accept that as payment? To me, it seems like such a missed opportunity that Vegas, we need to catch up to what's happening.
Yeah, and I speak on this pretty frequently. As a retailer or a merchant, it's really your job to provide goods and services to the customer, and it's really your job to provide goods and services to the customer, and it's not really in your best interest to discriminate against what type of currency they're going to pay for it. Obviously the crypto industry has produced some extremely high net worth individuals. As a retailer and as a merchant, when you open up the payment processing to accept crypto or Bitcoin or vice versa, you open the doors to all of these new customers. And as a retailer providing goods and services, you want to expand your market as much as possible. And doing so, you can target all of these new individuals that may have not even been interested in your property before. It's very, very interesting.
And we just saw recently that a nightclub in Miami actually just started accepting Bitcoin. 11 Nightclub, that's one of the most popular nightclubs out there. I remember in 2017 running around the nightclub that I worked at, telling everyone to buy Bitcoin. I remember talking to management, telling them that they need to accept Bitcoin. I was like, some of these table minimums are 5 figures, 6 figures. And so the crypto investors have a large net worth, and if they want to pay $50,000 for their table service, why not accept a few Bitcoins for that service? And you have yes, you do have the confirmation time that can take anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes or an hour, depending on if the network is congested. But in the meantime, you can literally just plop bottles on the table and wait, and it's not like the customer is going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's an array of benefits from, you know, accepting as many currencies as you possibly can, and just really providing the goods and services and working out the kinks on what currency you're, you know, accepting on the back end. As long as you get, you know, equal value, then you really shouldn't be concerned with what you're accepting. As far as Bitcoin in nightlife and in Vegas in general, and bringing it back to Miami too, well, Miami just had the most expensive penthouse in the entire city sell for $22 million that was paid in Bitcoin. You know, a lot of these people are very prominent investors and very, you know, sharp people, and it's really up to them what currency they want to pay in. And there's you know, sure, Bitcoin can be a little bit slow, but it's still being developed. I think that it's very important to realize that it's just a technology, and it's actually software, and it can be upgraded over time. And you know, it may not be completely instant payments, but there are layer 2 and layer 3 solutions that really speed up the process for the payments specifically.
And Vegas and Miami have a lot of similarities. It's a 24/7 town, very transient. Most of the people who live within the city weren't actually born there. I saw a stat the other day that the Las Vegas population is made up of only 25% natives. I mean, we're a small group of people. So
That's right.
People come out here for opportunity. It's the same reason they go down to Miami. And Mayor Suarez has done a very good job in Miami of attracting crypto entrepreneurs and companies and giving them benefits and incentives to move down there and operate. And I see what they're doing down in Miami can definitely be replicated and even outdone out here in Vegas as long as we band together and find different nuanced ways to integrate it into the economy.
Yeah, I mean, you can basically make the parallel that Miami would basically be Vegas with a beach, right? That's been done many, many times. Their whole community is really open to Bitcoin now. It hasn't always been, but it is fairly big out there now. They're really inviting basically all of the heavyweights from Silicon Valley, all of the heavyweights from basically, you know, all throughout California that didn't really want to do with the high tax structure. And they were, you know, actually inviting them out to come and check out the city. Say, hey, builders, creators, entrepreneurs, and, you know, investors, we want you guys to be out here. You know, we have an exciting city. We want you guys to come and build here and come be a part of it. And we have a very similar structure in Vegas. We have a low tax structure. We have a very exciting city. We're a 24-hour city, you know, that's basically a melting pot. This city is so diverse. Like you said, there's very few people that are actually born and raised here. And so as, you know, we really make it a mission to invite these high net worths and, you know, really high quality people out here to see what we have going on, the impact that it can have on the overall economic structure of Las Vegas specifically, it can be changed quite quickly.
Quite quickly. And outside of just direct payments that can change the Las Vegas Strip, you can go even a little bit more nuanced and talk about NFTs, which has been a growing trend and seems to be what has onboarded a lot of new entrants into the crypto space. And NFTs can be just more than art and collectibles. We saw Mark Cuban is adopting NFTs as tickets. How many ticketed events do we have on the Las Vegas Strip per day? It's probably dozens or hundreds during the peak summer. So if you can issue an NFT as a ticket to, let's say, Omnia nightclub, and you saw Calvin Harris and had a really good time, then you have that in your wallet. You can share that with other people, and with crypto, you can always look up somebody's wallet and see what's there. So you can find a lot of similarities and experiment with it.
Absolutely. And yeah, we have payments, and payments are great. You know, you can pay with a credit card, you can pay with Bitcoin, you can pay with cash. You know, it's innovative. It's not extremely exciting, but you know, it's there. And then you have all of the other possibilities of crypto and blockchain, specifically within the hospitality sector. Well, rewards programs, right? Whether you go to a Drake show at XS Nightclub on, you know, New Year's Eve, and your ticket is an actual NFT, and maybe the company will roll out a program where if you have, you know, 3 of the previous Drake shows, then you'll get a specific invite to come to the next one. Or basically, it's just the dynamic. It's the next evolution of the rewards program. And so it's going from static to dynamic. And you can really just have such a different relationship with the consumer. And you don't even really need to know that much about them. You just know whatever their history is. And so a lot of people going into a privacy-focused lifestyle don't really want to reveal that much about them, but you can still protect their privacy and respect their privacy while getting them to come to these events and really having a really, really dynamic relationship with them.
Yeah, we see Gary Vee has kind of taken the IP and NFT and combined it with his NFT drop of VFriends, where an NFT resembles a real world experience with him. He has certain cards that resemble it's a 3-year ticket to his VCon event. Some of them have hour conversations, podcast. You get to sit with him at a Knicks game. The endless, or the possibilities are endless, right? As you talked about, like the chain smokers. If you have 3 NFTs, maybe you get a meet and greet, and it's easy to identify those people. And it's very cost effective because now you don't have to hire as many marketers or hosts or whoever it is to contact the previous guest, because you could just look up the addresses and then just have direct communication there.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of that, we all go to these events and we really want to remember them. And so we go to these events and, we keep the ticket stubs in, the depths of our closet or whatever it may be, and we never even see it again. Well, when, these tickets are stored in your digital wallet and you're able to hang out with your friends and you're able to, go through all the experiences that you've gone through, it's just it brings the entertainment aspect of it really to the next level.
It really does. And outside of experience, which is what's happening in Vegas, on my podcast, I talk with entrepreneurs all throughout the city. And I really am seeing a trend where Vegas is growing from the entertainment capital of the world to the experience capital of the world. We saw Circa and Win are building out podcast studios and having podcast residents. And so they're integrating into the internet communities and the creative economy and trying to establish themselves ahead of their competitors. Because at the end of the day, you are competing for consumers to come into your casino and spend their money and have a good experience. So it's really cool to see something like that. And then you can expand into what do internet communities like? They like alternative gaming. They like skill-based systems. And so with alternative gaming, you can pay out NFTs or collectible experiences like that. You don't have to have just dollars on a slot machine where you just pull the lever and be mindless. You can really enhance that experience. That's
very true, and that's a great point. The prizes and the valuables that you're able to offer these guests and the one-of-a-kind experiences, that's never been able to be done before. And so obviously very exciting use case there. And then to take it a step further, a lot of people, basically everyone in the world, just continues to spend more and more time in the digital world. And there are these metaverses that are appearing, within the realm built on the blockchain. And it's not really too far-fetched to imagine a world where, you love Las Vegas and you make it out a couple times a year, but, it does get quite expensive. And so you can tune in to maybe, a Chainsmoker show or, whatever your favorite artist might be digitally, and you can see it played on the metaverse, basically put on by, the same producers within, whatever VIP nightclub that you would be in. And they would basically have a full-on rendering, and you can experience it in real time just from afar. And so the build-outs that you can make are quite impressive.
Yeah, the metaverse is a growing trend. For those that don't know what a metaverse is, it's a crypto-based internet game in a sense. You could call it like a decentralized Roblox or Minecraft, but they're experimenting with all kinds of models. You see like Axie's Infinity has the play to earn model where you literally make money just playing the game. And you can adopt that model on the strip through whatever experience you see fit based off of your user's activity in their NFT wallet. Just it's the possibilities are really endless.
Right. And, these things, they exist, right? And they're gaining quite a bit of traction. And so for a long time, virtual reality wasn't really there. but it's really come a long way, and it's going to take the world by storm. And so these are the kind of problems that you need to be working on to get ahead of the next couple of years, because by the time that everybody sees it coming together, well, the value proposition of it, time has already passed.
So true. And so as we sit in this magnificent building, this multi-million-dollar facility that is BlackfireInnovation, and I just want to kind of touch on that for a little bit. I've come to become close friends with some of the operators of the building, and to see this 144-acre property eventually grow out and become this tech hub for the city, I think the opportunities are endless. Like, I know they want to build some housing and some kind, and they're luring in different tech companies to come out here. It's so cool to see, but it makes me interested to see how UNLV can play a role in this entire experience. We mentioned in the very beginning that there aren't many universities that have crypto education because it is open source and it was built just from regular contributors. So what do you see UNLV, or how do we think UNLV can have an impact on the crypto community in Vegas?
Yeah, I definitely think it really starts with education. The thing about just say Bitcoin specifically, and all crypto assets, is they're completely transparent, right? Nobody speaks for them. Nobody's in charge of them. And so the educational barrier within that can be a little bit intimidating because you don't really have anyone to show you the ropes. So I think it really all stems with education. And then from then you can really continue to incubate these great businesses that are going to exist, that are building out these things that we're talking about, metaverses, alternative gaming, et cetera. But it really does start with education. So you and I here today really just, breaking ground on the beginning phases of the educational experience that we're providing here. I think that's the best way to start it.
And the trend that I see happening, and this has happened at some of the other universities where they've built out a blockchain program, is that the universities are partnering with local creators, local economists, local contributors to the crypto community. Because I took a survey on my social media maybe about a month ago, had about 400 different people respond to it. And I asked how many people are interested in crypto. And I saw it was about 80% yes, that they are interested in crypto. And then I did another survey and I said, the question was, I want to learn about crypto, but I don't know where to start. And about 80% of those people said that they had no idea where to start. And so when you browse the internet and you see all this information combined with crypto's murky past, you really just don't know where to go because it is so dense. And so you begin to look for somebody that you could trust. You look for local leaders, and you don't, especially with crypto, you don't actively go out to a university because the university's faceless. You can't put a face to the message and the education that they're putting out. But for you and I coming out here and the community becoming familiar with us, they then begin to find more interest because they trust us most. There's an example I use on my show all the time about how users and consumers are more focused on the leader than the actual product, right? Regardless of what you think about Elon Musk, most people buy a Tesla because they like Elon Musk. And then from there on, then they begin to learn more about electric vehicles. So it's something that as we sit here and have this conversation, it's something similar that we're contributing to the local economy.
Yeah, and I mean, I like that parallel a lot with electric vehicles. You can actually pivot that to be, quite parallel with Bitcoin specifically and all crypto assets. But, you have these electric vehicles and you have to charge them, right? And so when you are in the early stages of adoption, it's very difficult to take an electric car across the country. Remember, Elon Musk getting in his Tesla, going across the country was, a newsworthy headline at the time. Well, now you have superchargers all throughout the country, right? And so as the network develops, it gets quite a bit stronger, which incentivizes more people to come onto the network because it's much easier to travel within. And it's the same with Bitcoin, right? The more retailers that adopt it, the more entrepreneurs, investors that are building this space, they all have Bitcoin wallets. Well, the breadth of the network grows exponentially, and that's what we're seeing now. And that's why you're able to go from adoption level 0 to over 150 million users globally in just over a decade.
It's really so beautiful to see. we are in a prime scenario right now as we sit here today. It's June 25th, I believe. Crypto has gone through a bit of a downtrend recently, but the engagement online, I believe, is up about 10x from a year ago. So regardless of the price speculation, which is not something that we want to do throughout the history of this podcast and educational course, we want to really focus on the technology, the use case, and be more of a basic fundamental show to help with the understanding of how to use crypto and how to navigate the industry.
Yeah, and anything that's early in its adoption cycle is really going to face challenges, and there's going to be it's going to be a volatile market, and I think that that's completely acceptable for giving the encompassing nature of the entire industry. And so sure, it'll grab a lot of headlines that Bitcoin can be down X percentage, but really when you look on a log scale, or you just look at it year over year, you're still up over 10x. So multiple times over, it's still increasing adoption at an extremely rapid pace. So, like I said, although a lot of the headlines can really be kind of misleading and a bit confusing, we like to really focus on the growth metrics of the network as a whole, and it continues to gain traction at an extremely rapid pace.
And that's something that you and I are focusing on as we've become friends and work together, is researching the industry as a whole and collaborating with the local entrepreneurs and just those who are an enthusiast with crypto. You and I have begun our own adventure, which is called Nativ Research, NATIV, because there's a few parallels to the word native. We're both native to Vegas. As I mentioned earlier, only about 25% of Vegas residents are native, so that's unique. We're part of the millennial generation, which was the first generation to be internet native. And you and I are native to the crypto economy, as being in it for four plus years, respectively. And so we're focusing on research in a few different endeavors, and we are working behind the scenes, not just on this crypto podcast, but on a few other projects that we're going to announce here in the near future to help educate those that are interested, and hopefully present some interesting perspective and viewpoints that has not been implicated into the crypto economy so far.
Yeah, so like I said, the educational barrier is priority number one. We want to get everyone on the same page. And, a really exciting thing that we're going to be having coming out is we're going to be offering educational content, in sponsorship and partnership with Blackfire, UNLV, et al. But it's going to be bilingual. So, there's going to be Spanish speakers that can communicate the content directly to, the Spanish-speaking population that we have here locally, or just broadly on the internet, on top of the English-based content as well. So we're really just trying to be as inclusive as possible, and that's really just goes direct. It's directly correlated with the inclusive nature of crypto as a whole, right? There's no way that the Bitcoin network can discriminate against age, sex, martial status, etc. It just sees everybody as a Bitcoin wallet. And so we're bringing that same ethos, and we're, democratizing the content and information here locally.
Yeah, we do have a goal at Nativ Research, and it's going to be pretty simple, and I'm going to lay it out to you. It's to accelerate crypto adoption, to educate the locals, and to collaborate with like-minded individuals. Very simple. Accelerate, educate, collaborate. And it is going to be a slow start, but as I mentioned before, small communities can have a large impact, as we see with El Salvador. So, Chris, I thank you for sitting here and talking with me. I'm super excited for this mission. We talked so much about how we wanted to have our impact on the crypto community, and for a long time we bounced back so many ideas, but I think we're on the right path, partnering with UNLV and Blackfire. And for any of those who are in Vegas, or even if you're not in Vegas and want to contribute to Nativ Resource or get in touch with UNLV or myself or Chris, just please reach out. We are also hosting a monthly meetup here at Blackfire, which is going to be the last Tuesday of the month. So when this releases, it'll be that day. June 29th will be the first one, about 2 hours, to really just get everyone together. We can, we could create a database, and we can also be experimental with the ways that we go about collaborating with all the locals out here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the primary goal of Nativ Research is to, encompass everyone, get everyone included and involved within the industry, see what the city has to offer. And then we're going to work on tackling, really hard problems, building businesses, investing within the ecosystem and, locally and broadly. So we have a lot of cool things that'll be coming up. It's really getting off the ground now, and super excited to see it, really take off.
It's finally happening, guys. It's finally happening. Accelerating crypto adoption out here in the fabulous Las Vegas. Please reach out to us. I'm pretty easy to find, just at Jake Gallen, JakeGallen, or just go find my podcast, the Guest List Podcast, on YouTube, all of the social media platforms as well, where I talk with entrepreneurs in the city.
Yep, perfect. ChrisDevitte on Instagram, at ChrisDevitte. You can find me on Twitter, email, whatever you prefer.
Boom. Find us out here, guys. Please reach out. Even if you just have a question, if you want to be introduced to anybody, we're here to help and contribute to the local economy. So, Chris, thank you for coming on here. We're done with episode 1, but many, many more to go and many more problems to solve. So I'll see you next time.
Take care.